It is our silver jubilee this year. For 25 years, CNBC TV 18 has been leading the charge of covering Indian and global economy, the world's financial markets, and the rapid developments across companies in India and across the globe. We thank all of our viewers for your continued support and trust in us. You are watching India Business Hour, and I'm Shireen Bhan. The big story this evening, the Monetary Policy Committee has kept the repo rate unchanged. That was what our poll had suggested, at 6.5%. That is the 11th consecutive time that the MPC has decided not to change the repo. This was Governor Shaktikanta Das's last policy meet before his tenure comes to an end, which is on the 10th of December. There has been no word yet on whether he will get an extension or if there is likely to be a replacement. Addressing a press conference, Governor Das said RBI is keeping a prudent eye on the growth-inflation dynamic in global developments, asserting the need to keep inflation on a tight leash. The RBI has also decided to cut the cash reserve ratio by 50 basis points. This will unleash over 1 lakh crores of liquidity into the system. The committee has also decided to hike its FY25 inflation target from 4.5% to 4.8% for the next 3 quarters. The RBI said it expects food inflation to linger on in the third quarter as well. Similarly, GDP growth estimates for FY25 have also been cut from 7.2% to 6.6%. However, Governor Das said high-frequency indicators suggest that the slowdown in Q2 has bottomed out.
Prudence, practicality and timing will continue to be the guiding principles for the Reserve Bank's future actions. It is all about dissection of the inflation growth conditions and acting accordingly. Timing of actions is the key.
At present, it is necessary to draw on the flexibility provided by the neutral stance of monetary policy to wait for and monitor the incoming data for confirmation of the decline in inflation.
Well, that is the RBI governor on the MPC. Lata joins us now with more on the monetary policy and its impact on the market and the economy. Lata, as expected, no change as far as repo is concerned. That CRR cut, which the street was expecting, has come in, and no word yet on Governor Das's tenure. But overall, what do you make of the commentary?
The CRR cut is on expected lines because a lot of liquidity has been drawn from the market. As of end September, the surplus liquidity that banks were giving away to the Reserve Bank, sort of durable liquidity in the market, was 4.2 lakh crore. By the time we come to end November, it's fallen to like 40,000 crore. So the CRR cut was expected simply to refurbish the liquidity that has been withdrawn because we draw cash from the banking system. RBI has been selling dollars to counter the dollar outflow. So every time you sell, you're pulling out rupees. Therefore, this CRR cut was absolutely in order. Otherwise, it would have almost strangulated the banking system. But the point is, the Reserve Bank did not go one step further and say that they will do OMO purchases in Q4. I actually asked the governor that question, but they don't seem inclined. Maybe they'll use the weapon when needed. When they purchase bonds, they can add more liquidity to the system. The other, on the repo cut, there was a bit of a giveaway because the governor said that he believes in timely, prudent and practicality of policies, and they have forecast that inflation will fall to 4% by Q2 of FY26. So all that gives the impression that now even if you cut, it's not going to get passed on because liquidity is tight. But in February, when there is a confirmation of inflation falling, which he pointed out to that as well, then maybe that sounds like an opportune time. If you put many of his statements together, that's the impression you get. And on finally, the cutting of the growth forecast and lifting of the inflation forecast, I think that was very much needed. The Reserve Bank had almost lost credibility when it did not recognize the slowdown signs, even in its November nowcast. They went with 6.7 for Q2. All that has been set right, and this definitely is a very, very good policy in terms of forecast and in terms of action.
All right, many thanks, Lata. And staying with the policy aside, the RBI also announced a slew of decisions aimed at making it easier to access agriculture loans up to a certain limit, among others. Ritu is standing by now with some of the other key measures announced today. Ritu.
Well, let's start with the mule accounts, where the RBI has repeatedly raised concerns about lack of action from the banks. And the governor now said that the RBI is actively working to prevent and mitigate these kind of frauds through strengthened cybersecurity, transaction monitoring and fraud prevention guidelines, and building something called the mulehunter.ai, which is an AI ML-based detection model to combat this that has been built by the Reserve Bank of India Innovation Hub. Number two, UPI scope has also been widened. So now the RBI plans to allow small finance banks to also offer pre-sanctioned credit lines through the UPI, which will boost access to credit for the new-to-credit customers. Number three, to account for inflation and rising agriculture input cost, the limit for collateral-free agricultural loans has been increased from 1.6 lakh rupees per borrower to 2 lakh rupees per borrower, and this will again improve the access to formal credit for the small and marginal farmers. And lastly, to attract more foreign capital inflows, the RBI has increased interest rate ceilings on the foreign currency non-resident bank, that is the FCNRB deposits, to overnight alternate reference rate or ARR plus 400 basis points to, from previously ARR plus 200 basis points for the 1 to 3 year maturity bucket, and to ARR plus 500 basis points for the 3 to 5 year maturity. This is going to be effective immediately, but only be valid until the end of March next year. Now, that's as far as the non-policy measures are concerned, but the governor was also asked about his tenure, which is set to expire in 4 days on the 10th of December, and here's how he responded.
Have you heard anything from the government so far, whether you are continuing this term, at least informally, before the policy meeting started? I will have one more question today. Yes.
Is that your only question?
No, I will have one more.
No. Let's stick to monetary policy. Please ask your question on monetary policy. Otherwise, you will miss your chance on asking a question on the monetary policy. So you choose which one you want to ask.
Okay, since
it's your choice.
Okay.
I'm willing to answer the first question also, but it's your choice.
Okay, please answer the first question then.
Okay, I'm not giving you any headline, and I think it's better we stick to monetary policy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that is the RBI governor. Remember, his tenure ends on the 10th of December. No word yet on whether there is an extension, which has been speculated, or there is going to be a change of guard. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has responded to Q2 GDP growth slowing to its lowest level in 21 months. The Finance Minister says the numbers do not indicate a systemic slowdown, citing a lack of government spending and capital expenditure as the key reason. Sitharaman expects growth in Q3 to make up for Q2.
Quarter one, the election, but quarter four, which was very good, had an impact on quarter one. So the numbers were not alarming when you saw it. But quarter two, when it slows down and when growth numbers are reflecting, we should put it in the context of an economy, a governance structure, which was all focused on election. And therefore, quarter one's emphasis more on running the election through had a bearing on quarter two. But I'm elaborating this just to say it's not a systemic slowdown. It is more absence of activity on public expenditure, capital expenditure, and so on. So I expect quarter three to also make up for all this.
Well, that's the Finance Minister. With less than 2 months to go for the Union Budget, the Finance Ministry has begun consultations with various stakeholders. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman met economists today to take their feedback and suggestions. Economists shared recommendations related to bolstering supply management and drafting a new manufacturing policy, among others. The rupee gaining about 4 paise against the dollar after the Reserve Bank's monetary policy. The rupee remains near record low levels against the greenback. In the bond market, the 10-year bond prices declined today after the RBI's move to boost liquidity by cutting the cash reserve ratio. And from the money market now to the stock market, the Sensex and the Nifty ending in the red after a choppy session. Bank stocks also gave up gains. Mid-caps, though, managing to buck the trend today. And in cryptos, Bitcoin prices also corrected after hitting a record high of $103,000. The cryptocurrency market cap also dropped below $2 trillion. Bitcoin has gained over 140% in 2024 so far, and it's gained 40% since Donald Trump won the U.S. presidential election. All of these developments come as Trump has nominated former PayPal chief operating officer David Sacks to be his White House czar on artificial intelligence and crypto. Remember, Sacks hosted Big Spender at his San Francisco mansion in June to support the Trump campaign. The event reportedly raked in more than $12 million. Onto the energy markets, crude oil prices extending their losses after OPEC plus nations delayed a planned move to increase oil output. The group has also extended deep output cuts to the end of 2026. With this, oil prices are on course to register a weekly loss. In international news, the war in Syria has escalated as rebel forces captured more cities. Thousands fled their homes as opposition forces inch closer to the central Syrian city of Homs after capturing Hama. Meanwhile, Israel has said that it struck what it claims are Hezbollah smuggling routes on the Syrian-Lebanon border. And tensions continue to escalate in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said the country is ready to use any means necessary to ensure no strategic defeat would be inflicted on Moscow. Lavrov maintained that Russia intended to convey this message to the West with the use of hypersonic missiles in Ukraine. This comes as Russia launched over 50 drones into Ukraine overnight. The Ukrainian Air Force claims it successfully shot down more than 30 drones and lost track of the rest. Back home, South Korea's LG Electronics has filed its draft IPO papers for its Indian arm with SEBI. The company plans to raise up to 15,000 crore rupees via the offer for sale route. LG's South Korean parent plans to dilute 15% stake in the company. With this OFS, the public issue will be one of India's top 5 IPOs. This after Hyundai, also from Korea. The union government is not satisfied with Ola Electric's claim of resolving 99% of its customer grievances. Sources tell CNBC TV18 that 250 random calls were made to Ola's customers by the Consumer Affairs Ministry, and that has left the ministry dissatisfied. Abhimanyu joins us now with the details. Abhimanyu, what are you picking up from your sources?
Following Ola Electric's claim of over 99% of customer grievances having been resolved successfully, the Department of Consumer Affairs had reached out to several of these customers to verify and corroborate these claims which were made by the EV OEM. Around 250 customers have expressed dissatisfaction, even as the department is still in process of reaching out to more customers. Until now, the findings and revelations are contrary to the submissions given by Ola Electric. It remains to be seen till when the final report would be submitted by the Director General of the Bureau of Indian Standards, who was asked last month by the Central Consumer Protection Authority to initiate a probe into consumer complaints against Ola Electric, many of which were not resolved according to the initial complaint. It remains to be seen how the situation is going to pan out, even as the government is also in process of initiating another set of inquiry against another EV OEM, though it has not been indicated which is the EV OEM, but the government is possibly going to expand the ambit of the probe as indicated earlier, and the DGBIS in all likelihood is going to submit its report by the end of this month into the consumer complaints which were filed against Ola Electric.
Right, Abhimanyu, many thanks for joining us. Maruti Suzuki announced that it will hike prices of all its cars by up to 4% to offset rising input costs. The price hikes will come into effect from January. Shares of the automaker accelerated in trade following the announcement. This comes soon after Hyundai, Audi and BMW India announced price hikes. Samvardhana Motherson will acquire 95% stake in Japan's Atsumitech. The all-cash deal is valued at 480 crore rupees. The auto components manufacturer said the deal is likely to be completed by the first quarter of the next fiscal. Honda Motors will hold the remaining 5% stake in the company post this deal. Paytm shares hitting a 52-week high after reports that the fintech player may sell its stake in Japan's digital payments firm PayPay Corporation to SoftBank Group. According to a Money Control report, Paytm will sell its stake of 5.4% in the Japanese firm for 2,000 crore rupees. However, both Paytm and PayPay are yet to comment on the development. Now, renowned author and historian Yuval Noah Harari calls for guardrails on artificial intelligence. Speaking to CNBC TV18, Harari also warned that the AI revolution is moving extremely fast and humanity stands to lose. He highlighted that algorithms are becoming the most important news editors in the age of AI.
Very often, it's AIs choosing the targets of the bombing. You know, in science fiction, we often see killer robots. In reality, it's still humans pulling the trigger. But increasingly, it is the AIs that choose the targets because they can analyze and process a lot more information, a lot faster than any human soldier, than any human analyst. If there is a complete kind of out of control, no guardrails, no rules, AI race, we know who will win and who will lose. AI will win and humanity will lose. Previously, like in media, in news, So the most important decisions were made by news editors, which were human beings, so you could understand them. Now, who are the most important news editors in the world? They are no longer humans. They are the algorithms that manage Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and all these platforms. So how do you, it's very difficult to understand them because they are not human.
And you can catch that conversation with Yuval Noah Harari at 10 p.m. right here on CNBC TV 18. Big international stories. The head of South Korea's ruling party has called for the president's suspension a day ahead of the impeachment motion against him being put to vote in the National Assembly. People Power Party's leader said that President Yoon should be suspended from office as soon as possible. He said there was credible evidence suggesting that the president had sought the arrest of politicians after his short-lived declaration of martial law. This comes as a U-turn of sorts, as the People Power Party had earlier said it would oppose the opposition party's impeachment bid against Yoon. Opposition parties, which have a strength of 192 in the National Assembly, need 200 votes for the impeachment motion to go through. The People Power Party has 108 lawmakers. President Yoon had won the presidential race by a whisker in 2021 on the power of the People Power Party ticket. French President Emmanuel Macron has said he will name a new prime minister in the coming days after Michel Barnier resigned following a no-confidence motion. Macron, however, vowed to stay on as president until the end of his term in 2027. In a televised address, he rejected pressure from opposition to step down. Up next on India Business Hour, Airlines have paid compensation worth 50 crore rupees to passengers for flight delays and cancellations in the first 10 months of 2024. That's a 47% rise year-on-year. More details when we return. And you can catch all of CNBC TV 18's news and updates on Facebook, X, Threads, Instagram and JioCinema. Opposition MPs continue to protest over the Adani issue in Parliament today. The 10th day of the winter session also saw controversy in the Rajya Sabha after the chairman, Jagdeep Dhankar, said that a wad of currency notes had been recovered from a seat allotted to Congress MP Abhishek Manu Singhvi, who denied the charges. Singhvi also demanded a probe, calling the incident a security lapse. Protesting farmers suspended their Delhi march for the day after several farmers suffered injuries at Haryana's Shambu border. The Haryana police, which set up barricades to block the farmers' march to Delhi, fired tear gas shells and rubber bullets. The protesting farmers are demanding a legal guarantee on the minimum support price. Airlines have paid compensation worth 50 crore rupees to passengers for flight delays and cancellations in the first 10 months of 2024. Now, this is a 47% rise compared to last year. So which airline paid how much? Madhiya is standing by with the details. Madhiya.
Well, so if you compare the amount to 2022, 50 crores is 47% more than last year and almost triple of that amount paid by airlines in 2022, which is 17.7 crore rupees. Now, of these 50 crores, airlines paid 12.7 crores towards denying boarding, almost 10 crore towards cancelling flights. A major chunk was towards delays beyond 2 hours. Now, I'm sure most people who travel by air have suffered due to long delays. So that amount stood at nearly 27 crores. Of the 50 crores paid between Jan to October 2024, more than half was paid by just Air India, and it also matches the kind of delays and cancellations we saw at Air India since the start of the year. Indigo, which is the largest domestic carrier, has shelled out the lowest amount in compensation, just 37 lakh rupees. That's also because the airline could provide alternate flights and also refunds to passengers. Now, what's interesting is that SpiceJet, which has a very small fleet as compared to other big players and hence also a very small market share of 2.4%, spent over 10 crore rupees towards compensation for passengers between Jan to October. When it came to denying boarding, Air India and Vistara shelled out more. Air India paid 10 crore rupees for denying boarding as compared to Indigo that spent just 37 lakh rupees. For flight cancellations, Air India paid 5 crore rupees, followed by SpiceJet that paid 2.7 crore rupees in compensation to passengers. For delays beyond 2 hours, Air India topped the list with the airline spending 10 crores towards compensation. This is also where SpiceJet had to spend more. The airline paid 7.4 crore rupees for delaying flights beyond 2 hours. Now, if we look at the punctuality chart of airlines in October, all of them have performed below 80%. Indigo had an on-time performance of 71.9%, Vistara at 71.4%, Akasa Air stood at 67.2%, Air India had an OTP of 66.3%, and SpiceJet stood at 63.8%. So that's what the year so far looked like for Indian Airlines in terms of compensation they had to pay to passengers for the inconvenience.
All right, Madhya, appreciate you joining us. Well, let's hope that things improve there as far as consumers are concerned. The union government will soon release guidelines to prevent spam calls and messages, the Consumer Affairs Secretary Nidhi Khare said. The telecom industry wants certain guidelines to be put out for safeguarding consumer interests under the Consumer Protection Act. Take a look.
We had slowed down because we wanted to actually give the sector regulator full powers on how they are going to curb it. Now that the rules are in place and the industry wants that certain guidelines also need to be put out for safeguarding the consumer interest. We are working on it, and very soon we will come out with the guidelines on prevention of pesky calls.
And before we wrap, quick highlights of a UBS report on the wealth of billionaires. The net worth of billionaires worldwide has soared by 121% to $14 trillion from $6.3 trillion in the last 10 years. The number of billionaires has also doubled in the last 10 years to 2,682. However, the peak of the rise in billionaires was 2021. Since then, there has been a plateauing. The wealth of Indian billionaires surging by 42% to $906 billion in the last 10 years. The report also says billionaires are set to face an uncertain world in the coming decade. Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks very much for watching. The news will continue right here on CNBC TV 18. From all of us, goodbye. Thanks for watching.